if it could have been reciprocated and could have been equally done the same, the livestock keepers could have been better than the agricultural producers in this country. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the policy. Thank you.
The MP for Suba-North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to support this policy, and in supporting, I wish to indicate that, Mr. Speaker, ordinarily the policy should be coming before the law, but because we already have a legal framework in relation to a lot of the issues dealing with agriculture, what would be required is then to relook at some of the laws to ensure conformity with this policy. Mr. Speaker, one of the things, or one of the objectives that's been mentioned, is the policy seeks to transform crop, livestock, and fish production. Mr. Speaker, as a fisherwoman, I want to talk to certain issues. But first of all, I just want to indicate that as a country, we need to think about diversification. We are thinking the same way that we have thought over years, and that's why I think Honorable Sukuli was talking about sessional paper number 10. And many of us are still stuck. I think it was 1965, I can't remember when, before I was born. But if we are able to think about diversification, like I saw at some point, Nyeri people were being persuaded to plant, or rather to eat fish, and they've actually started doing that very well. I think there's nothing stopping the people from my side of the world in embracing other things, including coffee. There are areas in my area that coffee can do well. But because we don't think that way, sometimes it's a problem. Mr. Speaker, one of my classmates, Bernard Michael, wrote to me something, and I think I want to think about this in terms of diversification and innovation. And he said that he had an opportunity a long time to work in my constituency with the Danida. And he said he had in mind introducing the idea of coconut, both as an economic crop as well as aesthetics along the lake shores, which extends all the way from Uhuru to Karachuonyo. The project was frustrated because it was supported by Danida, that then left. But if you look at some of the issues that is raising, there are things that we don't normally think about. If you are talking about Homa Bay County, we are thinking about potatoes, we are thinking about fish, we are thinking about maize, when we can actually diversify to coconut. And some of the things that is suggesting we look at is identification of existing trees, tree nurseries with sufficient water supply, coconut seedling propagation training, supply of coconut seeds and propagation, community sensitization and dissemination of values of coconut, distribution and field planting. And Mr. Speaker, this even gives some of the things that you'd actually look at in line with climate change, and that would actually planting coconut in areas like Homa Bay would actually help with that. Mr. Speaker, another issue that I didn't hear the mention of is the issue of self-sufficiency. And Mr. Speaker, I'm concerned about that because on the one hand, you see the policy looking at food security, but at the same time, in terms of the actions that we are doing as a country, we are moving away from self-sufficiency by now looking at GMOs. And if we want to go GMO way, we are moving away from self-sufficiency. And if we want to be competitive as a country, then we must have a competitive niche in our agriculture sector. And that we can only do if you have control, and not where we have a situation where in terms of even the crops and seedlings that we are going to use, we will still be looking at other countries. Mr. Speaker, I'd want to talk a little about the fishing sector. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I think we need to do in terms after this policy is to provide urgent regulations to reduce conflict in the lake. There's very serious conflict between omena and the Nile perch fishers, and sometimes they even threaten to kill each other. There's a lot of potential for conflict. And there's also very clear need for regulations around caging, which is also creating a lot of issues. One of the things I didn't hear was the gender dimensions, even of this policy, even as we are talking about 16 days of activism on gender-based violence. And finally, Mr. Speaker, because I can see my time is up, I want to say that let us think of the farmer and put our action where our mouths are, so that we don't forget the farmer. Farmers are crying out in this country. I do support and thank you.
The MP for Mogotio, followed by the MP for Kwesero. Mogotio. Can you give him the... Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also stand to support the policy, Mr. Speaker, because agriculture is one of the main pillar of the economy of this country, Mr. Speaker, and it is facing a lot of challenges from climate change, Mr. Speaker, from change of weather patterns and rain patterns, which has really affected agriculture, from continuous low allocation of budget to agriculture, Mr. Speaker, from the low number of young people who are venturing into agriculture because they see it as a old people business that they should not venture into.